Hi everyone, my name's Devin. I work at the Worcester Public Library, and today I'm here with Colin McCullough. It's so nice to see you, Colin.
Hey, Devin, thanks for having me.
Sure. So Colin went vegan in 1995, and he's been finding new ways to make healthy eating convenient and delicious, especially while raising two boys with healthy appetites. Colin teaches cooking classes throughout New England, including here virtually at the Worcester Public Library. And he shares his experiences and recipes with people who want to incorporate more whole food, plant-based meals for health, compassion, and the environment. He's also published two books, The Healthy Vegan Cookbook and Smoothies That Taste Like Girl Scout Cookies. So Colin, my first question is, could you explain what a whole foods diet is to our viewers?
Sure. Yep. So, like you said, I've been vegan for a long time, but really, it wasn't until about 5 or 6 years ago that I really started to kind of take a step beyond that and really cut out a lot of the processed foods. I really stopped using a lot of oil. I don't, stopped using sugar and kind of cut back on the amount of salt that I use. So, if you don't eat a lot of processed foods, then automatically kind of you're not eating as much salt generally anyway. And, I found when I became vegan, I found that I really, felt so much better health-wise. And then once I kind of moved away from eating the processed food and had, whole foods, unprocessed foods, food that I would make myself at home and, not, just be pulling from the freezer and, all the processed stuff as much. I felt so much better again, just another huge boost in health and, it just felt so much better. So, just kind of a different approach, whether you're vegan or not, just trying to look at, trying to eat more healthy whole foods, unprocessed foods, which unfortunately takes a little bit of the convenience away from just being able to pull bags of stuff out of the freezer. And but it's kind of a different approach, and there are ways definitely to do it that make it much more convenient. So that was really kind of the focus, or one of the focuses for me behind writing the Healthy Vegan Cookbook was trying to explore those and make it as convenient as possible.
Yeah, I know you mentioned about freezing things, and I think that's really helpful for people. They just do want to pull something out of the freezer, but have it be healthy and know that they made it.
Right. Yeah.
So another question, I was wondering if you could just tell people why you decided to go to a vegan lifestyle back in the 90s.
Sure. Well, I became vegetarian first. I went to music school back in the earlier 90s, and there was a very large international population there, and most of the food that they served in the cafeteria was vegetarian. And so, having somebody else cook for me for a year, and it was all, such delicious food that, I really came to feel like, well, why not? If animals don't have to die for me to be able to eat, then why would I not do that? I love animals. And then, after doing that for a year, really the more that I started to read about nutrition, but then also, about dairy and how the meat and the dairy industry are so connected. So as a vegetarian, if I said, well, I don't eat animals because I don't want animals to have to die, um, you know, animals are still suffering in order for me to continue to eat dairy. And then, like I said, when I became vegan, I just felt so much better health-wise. I really felt like, okay, so my body doesn't really work very well, work at its best if I'm having dairy. And as soon as I cut that out, then I just felt so much healthier and had so much more energy. So there's no going back for sure.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm imagining that you went through a lot of different recipes over the years because on your webpage you talk about trying to keep your two young sons interested in fruits and vegetables, and of course you evolved into making these cookbooks. So as you're going through trying to make these different recipes, is there ever a time you had a huge recipe fail and you were just like, oh no, what was I thinking? And would you be able to share that with us?
Yeah, that's a great question. Um, I guess there's two ways that I can answer that. One is I can't think of anything that I've ever made that was so awful that I wouldn't eat it. I can think of a couple of things that I've made that was that my kids refused to eat it. You know, when I was growing up, I had my mom would make kielbasa and sauerkraut, you know, together, and so I used to love that. And then when I found that there was a company that made vegan Polish sausage like kielbasa tofurkey, then I had to try that. And you know, it's totally different. It's not at all like actual kielbasa, but you know, so I made that meal and gave it to my kids, and I don't think that they'd ever had sauerkraut before. So the whole thing, they're like, no, no, please don't make that again. So I don't know. I mean, they like Reubens and things like that, you know, vegan Reubens. So maybe now that they've, you know, kind of had a taste of sauerkraut some more, then maybe they'd be more interested. But at the time, big no, big fail. Um, and then the other thing was uh, the other way that I guess I would answer that question is, you know, when I started to uh, teach classes and I was interested in writing the first cookbook, then you know I really wanted to try and hone my cooking skills, you know, as much as I could, and I kind of followed Malcolm Gladwell's 10,000 hour rule. You know, that you have to do something for 10,000 hours before you can, you know, kind of speak with any authority to it. So I was just downloading recipes all the time and trying out different recipes using, you know, different appliances and you know, writing my own recipes, trying other people's recipes. And, you know, what I found was, you know, after cooking, you know, so many meals a long time, then, you know, I certainly, you know, didn't become an expert. I wouldn't say, but, you know, one thing that I did get in all of that cooking was I did kind of develop to an extent an idea of what something's going to taste like. You know, if I can look at a recipe, look at all the ingredients, and kind of have an idea of what that's going to taste like if I put it all together. So that's kind of helped me from, you know, avoiding some recipes that you know I might not like, might have thrown away, you know, and my kids might not have liked. So that's been hugely helpful to have that skill.
Yeah, that makes sense. But speaking about your cookbooks, you know, I don't think I've ever interviewed anybody who's created a cookbook before. So I was curious if there were any roadblocks along the way or challenges you didn't expect in the process.
Hmm. Um, I would say that for the Healthy Vegan Cookbook, the challenge was to convince the publisher to publish the book. You know, I didn't send it out to 50 different publishers. There was really just one publisher, vegan publishers out of Boston that I had talked to, and they said, well, you know, we don't really do cookbooks. We're more of a vegan advocacy, you know, publisher, and you know, so they have lots of great books, but they don't really focus on cookbooks. And I, you know, so I kind of kept um, trying to kind of make the argument and say that, you know, this is my vegan advocacy. You know, to be able to teach other people, you know, whether they're vegan or vegetarian or they're just, you know, interested in healthier meals for their families, then, you know, this is my advocacy. You know, I teach these recipes. You know, people in the classes sometimes ask me about, you know, different aspects of being vegetarian or vegan, but you know, some people, you know, go out and do demonstrations and, you know, anti-fur protests and things like that, and you know, I really like to teach cooking classes and, you know, share what I know. So, you know, that was kind of the big challenge in writing that cookbook, was to try and convince them. And I guess they just finally gave up and said yes. So there was that. And for smoothies that taste like Girl Scout cookies, I think the big challenge was I had actually come up with the idea while I was writing the Healthy Vegan Cookbook. And, you know, I have 30 different smoothie recipes in the cookbook because that's usually what I have for breakfast in the morning. And I want a lot of variety. And so I was making a smoothie that tastes like peanut butter cookies. And yeah, and so I sort of came up with the idea for the Girl Scout cookie smoothie book. And I promised myself that I would not work on it or think about it until the Healthy Vegan Cookbook was done. and edited, and everything was done. And sort of like my prize of being finished was I get to work on this next one. So that was probably the biggest challenge, was to, hold off and, not try not to pay any attention to that until I was all done.
Well, I'm glad you were able to convince the publisher to do your healthy vegan cookbook, because there are a lot of great recipes in there, and I'm vegetarian, so I look at a lot of vegetarian cookbooks. You have a lot of great sections in this one, and the one that really appealed to me was the burgers and balls section, because as you mentioned, there's a vegan Reuben in there, which I'm pretty excited to try. But the one that really got me excited was the samosa patties.
Hmm.
It's something I hadn't thought of. And one thing I really like about your cookbooks is that there isn't a huge recipe list, which I think a lot of times in vegetarian cookbooks, it's like they try to throw in every spice and vegetable. So I wondered if that was intentional to keep your recipe kind of simple, or if it just worked out that way.
Hmm. Well, there are definitely other recipes in the book that have a lot more ingredients. So I can't claim that all of them are simple recipes, but um, yeah, I mean, if you look at some of the vegetarian burgers, that are on the market right now, especially some of the more processed ones like Impossible Burger or Beyond Burger, I think they taste fantastic. But if you look at the ingredients, then it's like a mile long. And so I definitely didn't try to set out to make something that was like that. Um, you know, uh, I'll have it. If I'm at a restaurant, then I'm not saying I won't have it. It's just I can make something at my house that is also really good, but is in a very different form. So, um, I don't really have very many recipes in the cookbook that are vegetarian things trying to be something else like meat and dairy. It's just sort of its own thing. Somebody's as a vegan, people have said to me like, "Oh, I don't like soy milk. I don't like almond milk. It doesn't taste like milk," and or like like cow milk. And I always say like it's its own thing. It's not trying to be like cow milk. I mean, you use it in cereal and smoothies and things like that, but um, you really have to look at it as its own thing. And so, in the cookbook, in the section for vegetarian burgers and vegetarian like meatball kind of things, it's really like using its own unique vegetables and grains and flavors. There's a lot of international, like the samosa burger. There's the black Cuban black bean burger. There's a Thai burger. There's all kinds of different ones. So I get to use different vegetables and different grains and different spices from different parts of the world, and it just makes really interesting veggie burgers that especially with great condiments. Then I can make a batch of it. Hardly uses any oil at all. It's not really processed, and they freeze really easily. So it's super convenient. There were a number of times when my kids were younger when they'd have karate class, and I'd come home from work and they'd have like we'd have 10 minutes to be able to make something quick, get out the door. And of course that's when you're most likely to grab something that's going to be the processed stuff. But like if I would make a couple of batches of the of one of the veggie burger recipes and then just freeze them, just pull some patties out of the freezer, heat them up, and go. We got food on the go, and I can feel good about what I'm feeding my kids, and it also tastes great.
Well, speaking of being in a hurry and, trying to juggle different things, I think a lot of people think that they don't really have time to cook or really think about what they're eating. So the idea of using unprocessed foods to create meals might seem daunting. And I was wondering what you would say to someone who thinks that they only have time for something that's in a frozen box, or like just a box in the cupboard food.
Yeah, well, I definitely don't have 2 or 3 hours a day to sit home in the kitchen and make food from scratch. So I had to kind of develop different techniques and strategies to try to make it as healthy as and convenient as possible. And so what I found a lot of times is freezer is your friend, right? So making a lot of stuff and then, freezing the rest, so that you always have things that's convenient and on hand. And then the other thing is, having the appliances do all the work. So, I always say in my classes, I'm a really lazy cook. I don't have a ton of time, sit there and chop vegetables for an hour. I'm not doing that. If there's things that I can, like I use my Vitamix, my blender quite a bit. Um, there are so many recipes, like the soup recipes. You just throw a bunch of stuff in the blender, blend it for 5 minutes, let the blender do all the work. Why would I, sit there and like peel tomatoes and take the seeds out? You can put it in the blender, and you get a high power blender. It's going to blend all the seeds and everything in there, so it's going to make it nice and smooth. I use an Instant Pot electric pressure cooker quite a bit. That's really kind of a set it and forget it kind of thing. You can put the grains in there, you can put beans in there, and you don't even have to do any work. You just put it in, turn it on, it cooks it, and then, half an hour later, it's all done. So, I'm a big fan of using the appliances in the laziest way possible so that the appliances do all the work and I don't have to.
I think that gives a lot of us hope who don't cook so much to hear that you, as a cook, call yourself lazy, but still make a lot of amazing food. So that's good to hear. But now the question I'm most interested in is, what's your favorite Girl Scout cookie flavor?
Oh, you mean for the cookie itself or for the smoothie?
Either one.
Okay. Um, I guess it'd have to be a tie between Thin Mints. I've always loved Thin Mints. You get the sleeve of them and then they disappear. There's like magic, they're gone somewhere. I don't know. Um, so, chocolate and mint, love that flavor combination. But then also the peanut butter cookie, the do-si-do, always really like that as well. And that was the first recipe that I made for smoothies that taste like Girl Scout cookies, where I made that chocolate peanut butter or that peanut butter cookie smoothie for the healthy vegan cookbook, and I was like, if I tweak this, I wonder like how close can I get this to taste like a Girl Scout cookie? And I went through a number of different variations of it, and made my kids drink them all. And so then, when I finally nailed it, like I just had the biggest smile on my face because like, oh my God, all this healthy stuff that you put in the blender, you blend it up and it tastes like a Girl Scout cookie. Like, this is amazing. Like, this is the perfect breakfast for me. When I talk to other people who are big into health food and, they're having like granola or they're having like oats and some blueberries for breakfast. And I'm like, oh, that's to me, that's really super boring. I want to have something that tastes like a Girl Scout cookie for breakfast. Come on, why not do that?
Yeah, I was really excited. My favorite Girl Scout cookie is the Tagalong. So,
Oh yeah.
first of all, I think it's really fun, the different kinds of names you give. Tag Longer Life Smoothie is
Yeah.
pretty clever. And this next one I thought was funny too. Triple again.
Yeah.
So I watched some of your other recordings you've done, and you said that in a lot of cases when you're making these smoothie recipes, you have ingredients that sort of sit in the background, like a mango, for example. So for your Tagalonga Life, I saw that you snuck in a carrot. And I think I feel the same way about carrots that you do about lima beans. So how much of this carrot am I going to taste?
Oh, you're not going to taste it at all. In the smoothie, you're not going to taste it. So that's one of the things that I found in developing smoothies for the Girl Scout Cookie Smoothie book is trying to use different fruits and vegetables that don't really have a strong taste, and put those in the blender. Those just kind of sit in the background, like the banana, the mango. There's carrot. There's sweet potato in the book. There's yellow squash in one of the recipes. If you cook it, especially something like the yellow squash or the carrots or something, if you cook it and then you freeze it, freezing really blunts the taste of it. So it's going to be pretty mild, and it's especially I'm not using like 3 cups of carrots in there. I'm only using some, so it's not enough that you're going to taste it. it gives you all the health benefits, and it just kind of sits in the background, and you don't really taste it in there.
Well, until I get a blender, I'm gonna have to take your word for it. If you've enjoyed this conversation with Colin as much as I have, make sure that you register for his next cooking class with us. It's going to be virtual. It's on March 27th, which is a Saturday at 2:30, and it's Terrific Tubers and Radical Roots, expanding your veggie vocabulary. Are there vegetables that you pass by in the produce section because you're not sure what to do with them? Rutabagas need love too. And this class will explore some recipes to spotlight the often overlooked but healthy and delicious vegetables in the produce section. I'm a big fan of tubers, so I think this sounds like a great class. Thanks so much for taking the time to talk today, Colin.
All right. Yeah. Thank you for having me again. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll see you at the tubers class.
Excellent. Yep. I'll be there with the rutabaga.